fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, the home for real stories from the people shaping the dairy industry. I'm Sarah, and I'm really glad you're here with us.
And I'm Jake. Yeah, it's good to be back.
You know, usually when we start a deep dive, we're ready to get into the weeds on the technical stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
We spend so much time talking about, milk price volatility or breaking down the latest genomic proofs or debating the pros and cons of robotic milking versus rotaries.
Right. We focus on the inputs and the outputs, the mechanics of the industry.
Yeah.
The spreadsheets.
The spreadsheets, exactly. Yeah. But today's going to be different.
Yeah.
Today isn't about milk prices or genetics. We have a story here that, quite frankly, it stopped us in our tracks.
It really did.
It's a story about community, about sudden loss, and about what happens when the machinery of a farm keeps running, but the people just vanish.
And I think for anyone listening, it doesn't matter if you're milking 50 cows or 5,000, this conversation is going to hit on a fear that every single producer has tucked away in the back of their mind. We spend all this time planning for risks, weather, markets, disease protocols, but this is a different kind of risk.
It really is. It's the human risk.
This is the kind of conversation that reminds you why you got into dairy in the first place. And it's not for the easy days.
No.
Anyone can look good when the sun is shining and the corn is chopping well and the tank is full. It is about how we show up.
Oh.
How we show up on the hard ones.
That's so well said. And just to give everyone the context, this story takes place in Lovington, New Mexico. But, and this is so crucial, as we go through this, I want you to realize this could be any road in Wisconsin. It could be a valley in Vermont. It could be a concession road in Ontario.
The zip code doesn't matter. Not at all. The coordinates don't matter as much as the reality of what happens inside that barn.
So let's unpack this. I want to take you to a very specific moment. June 4th, 2025. Outlook Dairy in Lovington, New Mexico.
June 4th. A Tuesday.
A Tuesday. And you have to picture the scene. The sources describe it as just a normal Tuesday.
Yep.
The morning started hot and dry, which is pretty typical for that part of the country. And if you closed your eyes and just stood in the parlor at, say, 8 a.m., you'd hear all those sounds of a dairy humming.
The rhythm.
Yes, the rhythm. The hoses hissing, the units clanking, the vacuum pumps running.
It's a constant. It's a rhythm. You know that sound. It tells you everything's okay.
It does. And over the top of it, that mix of Spanish and English chatter, it's the sound of a team working together. It's really the sound of productivity.
It's the heartbeat of the operation. I mean, things are going well just by the pitch of that noise. If it's rhythmic, if it's steady, you're making milk.
You're making milk. It's a machine made of people. But then, in a heartbeat, in just a moment, everything shifts.
The crisis point.
Homeland Security investigations, HSI trucks come down the lane.
And this wasn't like a small check-in. This wasn't a paperwork audit.
No. By the end of the day, 11 workers are in custody. But here is the kicker, and this is where the numbers, they just get scary. An employment audit that was tied to the raid forces the owner, Isaac Bowles, to fire 24 more people on the spot.
Okay, let's just pause on that for a second. We really need to feel the weight of those numbers because it's so easy to just hear 11 arrested and kind of move on.
Break it down for us. What does that actually look like on the ground?
We are talking about a workforce of 55 people. That's the total crew.
The whole operation.
The whole thing. Milkers, pushers, feeders, calf managers, you name it. In the span of a few hours, before the sun even goes down, 35 of them are gone.
30 guy.
That is nearly 2/3 of the entire workforce, 64%.
64%. Wow.
Imagine running any business. I don't care if it's a factory, a restaurant, a trauma center, and you lose 64% of your staff before the shift change.
Can't function.
You don't just slow down, you crash, you stop.
It's catastrophic, and the quote from Isaac Bowles in the source material is, it's just chilling. He said milk production didn't just slow down, effectively ceased.
Ceased. You never, ever want to hear that word associated with a dairy. A dairy is a continuous flow biological system. Ceased implies a stoppage that, biology doesn't allow for.
And that just sets up this massive curiosity gap for us.
Oh, yeah.
How do you milk thousands of cows when 64% of your team disappears before sunset? Who is left standing in the barn? And maybe even bigger, what happens to a town when 35 families are suddenly completely in crisis?
Because the cows don't know the workers are gone. The biology is it's relentless. It doesn't care about federal agencies.
Before we get into the scramble to survive, I think we really need to understand what was lost. We need the origin story, so to speak, because this wasn't just some faceless industrial site.
No, and that's a critical point the sources make. This was a community. It wasn't just a workplace.
So let's talk about the before. Who were these 35 people?
Well, there's a misconception sometimes, especially outside our industry, that farm labor is transient.
Right, that they're just passing through.
That it's people passing through, drifting from state to state, working a season and moving on. But these workers at Outlook Dairy, that wasn't the case at all. They had put down roots.
They were neighbors.
Exactly. I mean, their kids were in the local schools. They were shopping at the local grocery stores. They were part of the actual fabric of Lovington. They weren't strangers living in the shadows. They were the people you stood next to in line at the gas station or saw at the Little League game.
The sources mentioned that local advocates pointed this out. They said they contributed to our economy and enriched our culture. These were coworkers. They were friends.
And if you connect that to the listener's experience, just, think about your own crew. Think about those key people who have been with you for 5, 10, maybe 15 years.
The ones you trust implicitly.
Yeah.
The ones you don't even have to talk to, you just give them a look.
Right. The guy who manages the maternity pen, he knows the cows better than the owner does half the time.
Oh, for sure.
He knows which cow is feeling off just by the way she walks into the parlor. He knows that cow 4052 kicks with her left leg if you don't talk to her first.
That kind of institutional knowledge,
yeah,
it's invaluable. You can't buy it.
It's not just labor. That's the key thing. It's skill. It's intuition. You can't just replace that with a warm body. That knowledge lives in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that level of integration where the guy milking your cows is also the guy you see at the football game on Friday night, you get this illusion of stability.
What do you mean by that? An illusion of stability?
Well, you just get the feeling that it won't happen here, The coffee shop talk is familiar, everyone knows everyone, and you just assume the system will keep holding together because it has to.
Right. It's always worked before.
It's always worked. We all know the immigration system is broken. We know the labor situation is fragile. But day to day, you just assume the sun will come up and the crew will show up.
It's the normalization of a very fragile system.
Precisely. You build your whole life around it. You build your business on it until the trucks pull in.
Let's go right to that turning point. The raid itself.
The day everything changes.
The emotional shock described in the sources is just so intense. Isaac Boss, the owner, he emphasized that the dairy itself wasn't charged, but that the employees had false documents.
Well, yeah.
Just put yourself in that moment.
I can't even.
You're a farmer. The audit happens. You have 11 people arrested, literally taken away in vans. And then you're told you have to fire 24 more. Immediately.
Think about the impossible position that puts a business owner in. First, the human side of it, firing people you've worked with for years.
People you care about.
Yeah. But then let's just talk about the biological reality.
The cows.
The cows. They don't stop making milk just because the labor is gone. It's not like turning off a machine on a factory line and saying, okay, we'll start it up tomorrow.
No.
Their udders are filling up every single hour. The pressure is building. They need feed pushed up. They need water troughs cleaned. They need sand beds raked. The whole system is alive.
It's just the impossible math, isn't it? 55 people were doing that work. And now fewer than 20 remain.
It is physically impossible to do the same job. Isaac Boss said, and this quote sticks with me, "It takes 100% of the labor force. It's detrimental for our cattle. We're barely able to keep going."
Detrimental for our cattle. I mean, that is a gut punch for any producer to have to admit.
It breaks your heart because as farmers, animal welfare is the absolute priority. But, it's deeper than just being late for milking.
Tell me more about that. What happens biologically in that situation?
Okay, so we have to talk about the neurohormonal loop. This is critical. Milk letdown isn't just a mechanical process, it's hormonal. It relies on a hormone called oxytocin. And oxytocin relies on a calm, consistent, predictable environment. Cows are creatures of extreme habit. They know the sounds of specific workers, they know the routine, they know the timing.
So when the entire routine shatters,
When the parlor goes silent, or, you know what, even worse, when it's filled with the sounds of chaos and panic and strange voices, the cows get stressed.
right.
Their cortisol levels, the stress hormone, they spike. And cortisol directly blocks oxytocin. So even if you manage to get a unit on a cow, she might not let her milk down.
She holds it up.
She holds up. And now you've got a huge problem. You have residual milk left in the udder. That is a perfect breeding ground for bacteria.
So your SEC count just skyrockets.
Your somatic cell count goes through the roof. You're inviting mastitis into the herd. The machine doesn't just stop. It starts to self-destruct biologically. That is the absolute nightmare Isaac Boss was looking at. It wasn't just, we are late. It was, we are actively damaging the herd, maybe permanently.
Can you imagine the sound in that barn as the afternoon wears on?
It wouldn't be silent. That's the thing people might not realize. It would be deafeningly loud.
Really?
You'd have thousands of cows bellowing because they're full of milk, they're uncomfortable, and they're completely off schedule. It's a sound of distress. It's a sound that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
And the sun is going down.
And you have 20 people left to do the work of 55.
So how did they possibly get through it? Let's talk about the journey through. Because they didn't just walk away. They couldn't.
No, you can't. This is where the story gets incredibly real. And frankly, it gets gritty. This isn't the Disney version of farming where everyone pulls together with a song. This is the all hands on deck, brutal reality.
What did that actually look like day to day?
Well, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't a cavalry of trained professional relief milkers riding in to save the day. It was literally whoever was left.
The sources mention the office staff.
Yeah. I mean, can you picture that? The people who usually handle the phones, the payroll, the compliance paperwork, suddenly they're taking off their office shoes and pulling on a pair of muck boots that might not even fit.
People who maybe haven't been in a pit in years, or maybe ever.
Or ever. And you had high school students.
High school students on summer break.
Local high school kids. Instead of hanging out at the pool or playing video games, they are in a milking parlor in the middle of a crisis.
You mentioned earlier that we shouldn't romanticize this moment.
We absolutely cannot. A modern milking parlor is an industrial site. It is loud, it is wet, it is slippery. You have heavy steel gates swinging around.
And huge animals.
And you have 1,500-pound animals that are already stressed out and unpredictable because their entire routine has been broken.
And you put a 16-year-old who maybe has never been in a pit before into that environment.
You do. Because you have no other choice. But think about the danger. Think about the physical fatigue. These kids, the office staff, they aren't just working a nice little 4-hour shift. They are grinding. They are running on pure adrenaline.
In that kind of exhaustion, it just inevitably leads to mistakes.
It has to. It's human nature. When you are running on adrenaline and no sleep for days on end, your reaction time slows down. Your judgment gets cloudy.
That's when accidents happen.
That's when you get kicked. That's when a gate smashes a finger. And that's when the animal care, despite your best intentions, starts to slip.
The sources were very honest about that part of it.
And I really appreciate that honesty, because if you try to paint a picture where everything was perfect and no balls were dropped, nobody in the industry believes you for a second.
Right.
When you're that tired, you miss things. A cow with a full quarter, maybe she has mastitis starting, she gets missed. A calf that looks a little dull-eyed in the hutch doesn't get flagged because you're rushing to get formula into the next one.
It's not negligence, it's triage.
It's triage. That's the perfect word. You stop worrying about production targets. You stop looking at the nuances of feed efficiency or breeding protocols. The entire goal shifts to primal survival. It's just keep the animals alive.
It sounds like a war zone mentality.
It is survival mode, pure and simple. Just keep the milk flowing enough to relieve the pressure on the cows. Dump it on the ground if you have to, but get it out of the cow. That's goal number one.
And this just connects to every farmer's nightmare. You know, if you've ever had the flu run through your family during calving season.
Yeah.
Or a key employee quits without notice.
Mm-hmm.
You know that panic.
You know that feeling in the pit of your stomach? Now just take that feeling and multiply it by 35. It's overwhelming.
But there was another pressure building at the same time, wasn't there? This this atmosphere of fear.
Boss called it the intimidating effect.
And it didn't just affect Outlook Dairy, it rippled through the entire community.
We see this in stories from Vermont and New York and Wisconsin, too. It's a known phenomenon. When a raid like this happens, the immigrant community shrinks. They go underground.
What does that actually look like in practice outside the barn?
It looks like a ghost town. It looks like empty pews at church on Sunday because people are afraid to drive down the main road.
Wow.
It looks like the waiting room at the local clinic is empty because people are skipping doctor appointments for themselves or their kids.
Because just leaving the perceived safety of the farm feels like a massive risk.
The fear that leaving the farm means ending up in a patrol car. I mean, think about the parents not going to their kids' school play or a parent-teacher conference because they're terrified of being seen.
The emotional resonance of that is. It's just profound. You have children who are unsure where their parents are. You have families who are afraid to ask for help because asking for help means being seen, and being seen is dangerous.
It creates this invisible crisis that's running parallel to the very visible one in the barn.
So you have the cows bellowing on one side and this terrified silence in the homes on the other.
Both happening at once. And the farm owner, Isaac Boss, is somehow trying to navigate both of those things at the same time.
But then something shifted. There was a breakthrough.
And this is the part of the story that, I don't know, it just gets me. This is the part that separates this story from just being another tragedy.
It wasn't a policy change that saved them. It wasn't some government rescue program.
No, the cavalry wasn't federal agents coming back to help.
It was the neighbors.
When neighbors became family, that's really what happened.
Talk about that neighbor moment. How does that actually work? Because, I mean, your neighbors, they have their own cows to milk. They have their own farms to run.
That's the thing. It's not like they were sitting around with nothing to do waiting for a crisis. It started with text messages. You know how news travels in farm country?
Oh, yeah.
It travels faster than fiber optics. Before sunrise the next day, the phones are blowing up. Did you hear? How bad is it? What do you need?
And then they didn't just ask. They showed up.
They showed up. But you have to think about the logistics of that help. It's incredible. You have a neighbor who runs a dairy 5 miles down the road. He has to milk his own cows first.
Of course.
So he gets up an hour early. He pushes his own crew, who are probably also scared, by the way. He finishes his own chores. And then he drives over to Outlook Dairy to start a second shift for free.
That is just, it's exhaustion on top of exhaustion.
It is. You had nutritionists and vets swinging by early in the morning, not to consult, but to put on boots and scrape alleys. These are highly paid professionals doing manual labor because it needed to be done.
And the teens you mentioned earlier.
The local kids. Choosing to work in the middle of a crisis rather than scroll on their phones, I mean, that tells you something powerful about the character of that place.
And it wasn't just labor, was it? The help came in other forms, too. These little acts of kindness.
The stuff that actually keeps you going mentally when you want to quit. Plates of food left at back doors. You know, the classic, we made too much excuse so nobody has to feel like a charity case.
Oh, I just happened to bake 3 lasagnas today.
Exactly. Here, take this. I don't want it to go to waste. It's a way of helping that preserves dignity. You had people giving rides into town for families who were too scared to drive themselves. You had envelopes of cash being passed quietly at church for the families who instantly lost all of their income.
It was the community's way of saying, we see you, you're not alone.
Exactly. And then you had the town hall meeting in Hobbs, New Mexico.
Right. And this wasn't just a small gathering. The governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, was there.
Church leaders, school staff, this wasn't just an ag meeting. This was the whole community coming together.
And the questions they were asking weren't about economics, were they?
No. And that is so key. They weren't asking about tariffs or milk futures or the price of feed. They were asking human questions. They were asking, what happens to the kids? What happens to the grocery store if these families leave?
It's the realization that the dairy isn't an island. It's connected to everything.
The community realized they weren't just a collection of businesses coexisting next to each other. They were a single lifeline for one another. If the dairy falls, the grocery store hurts. If the workers vanish, the schools feel it. If the families leave, the church closes.
That is such a powerful pivot to go from their problem to our problem.
Our problem. That is the only way a community survives something like this.
So let's zoom out for a minute. We've looked at the micro at what happened at Outlook Dairy.
Yeah.
We've looked at the fear and the incredible community response. But we need to talk about the ripple effect. Because this goes so far beyond one farm in New Mexico.
We have to. We have to connect this to the bigger picture. Because if you're listening to this in Idaho or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, you need to understand what this means for you.
So what is the industry-wide reality here?
The data is stark. It's really not up for debate. 51% of all U.S. dairy labor is immigrant labor.
Over half the workforce.
Over half. And here's the even more critical number. 79% of the country's milk comes from these farms that employ immigrant labor.
Nearly 80% of the entire milk supply relies on this workforce.
Yes. The NMPF, that's the National Milk Producers Federation, they've done the modeling on this. They've run the numbers. They predict that losing this labor force would close 7,000 dairy farms.
7,000 farms.
And it would double retail milk prices for consumers.
Double the price of milk. I mean, that hits every single consumer in the country. That changes the grocery bill for every single family.
We've all seen the models, milk prices jumping to $6 or $8 a gallon. That's the macroeconomic data. But I want to drill down even deeper. For the guy or gal listening in the tractor cab right now, there's a stat that matters even more than the price of milk.
Okay, what is that?
It's the replacement lag.
Replacement lag. Explain that.
If you lose your experienced crew today, you don't just lose labor hours. That's not the real loss. You lose that institutional memory we talked about earlier.
Right.
It takes, 3 months to fully train a new milker to consistently spot subclinical mastitis before it flares up. 6 months for a new feeder to really learn the quirks of your mixer wagon so he doesn't waste thousands of dollars in feed.
So even if you somehow hired 35 people the very next morning,
Even if you had 35 eager, qualified people standing there at sunrise, which, let's be clear, you absolutely won't. You are still broken. Your farm is broken for at least a year. That's the nuance that the double milk price headline always misses.
it's the efficiency drag.
It's the efficiency drag. You bleed out slowly from the loss of skill.
Because the new guy doesn't know that cow 4-52 kicks with her left leg.
Exactly. So she kicks off the unit. She doesn't get milked out properly. She gets mastitis. You treat her, you lose the milk, maybe you lose the quarter, maybe you lose the cow. That is the ripple effect in action. It's the thousands of these tiny micro efficiencies that vanish instantly.
And there's a human ripple effect to just knowing this is possible, isn't there? The mental load on other farmers.
Oh, the 3.0 a.m. stare at the ceiling.
The worry.
The worry. If you are a farmer in Wisconsin or New York and you're watching this news, you're thinking, am I next? It adds a layer of anxiety to an already stressful job.
And you have to think about the spouse. And let's be honest, it's often the wife on the farm who's balancing the payroll, who's managing crisis communications, who's carrying the emotional weight of a terrified crew.
It is a heavy, heavy burden. I've seen it 100 times. The spouse is often the shock absorber for the entire operation. They absorb the fear from the employees, the stress from their husband, the questions from the community. It burns people out.
It's a universal truth, isn't it? This isn't a New Mexico problem. It's a vulnerability baked into the system everywhere.
The Bullvine's own reporting on this called it a stark preview. And that's exactly what it is. It's a trailer for a movie that nobody wants to see.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the listener? We've walked through the crisis, the survival, the community response. But if I'm sitting in my tractor cab right now listening to all this, what do I do with it? It could feel a little helpless.
Right. You might be thinking, that's terrible, but I'm in Wisconsin, so what can I actually do?
Exactly. So let's make this practical. I want to pose a challenge, a kind of thought experiment for everyone listening.
I call it the Who Would You Call challenge.
Go on.
It comes down to insight and preparation. The big lesson here is don't wait for the crisis to build the relationship. So I want you to ask yourself 2 questions today, right now.
So question 1.
If half my crew vanished tomorrow, just like that, poof, gone, who are the first 3 people I would call?
The first 3. And you don't mean your lawyer or your banker.
No, not your lawyer. Who would I call to help me physically milk the cows? Who would I call to help me feed the calves? Do I even have 3 names?
That's a really scary question for a lot of people to answer honestly.
It exposes your isolation. If you can't name 3 people, you have some work to do, you have relationship building to do.
And question 2.
Whose call would I answer if it happened to them?
That's the mirror image of the first question, isn't it?
That's the mirror. If your neighbor called you at 4 o'clock in the morning and said, they're all gone, I can't milk, would you go? Would you get out of bed and pull on your boots and drive over there?
That's profound. It moves it from being a policy problem to a personal responsibility.
And here's some actionable advice to go with it. Tell your key people, your family, your long-term staff, tell them today that they matter. Don't assume they know it.
Build the safety net before you need it.
Build the safety net before the storm hits. Go tell your neighbor, hey, if you ever get in jam, I'm here. I'm a phone call away. Make that verbal contract. Because when the HSI trucks show up, or the tornado hits, or the barn burns down, that verbal contract is the only insurance that actually pays out immediately.
And what about on the policy side of things?
When you talk to your representatives, and we all should be, don't just talk economics. It's easy to fall back on that. Don't just talk about milk price margins or class 3 pricing.
Tell them the human story.
Tell them this story. Tell them, here is who milks my cows. Here are their names. Here is what happens to my town, to the school, to the church, to the grocery store if they disappear. You have to make them see the people behind the paperwork.
Make it real.
Make it completely undeniable.
This has been, well, it's been heavy.
Yeah.
But so important.
Very important. It's a conversation we have to have.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I just keep thinking about the resilience we've seen in this story.
That's the word for it, resilience. But it's not the solitary, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of resilience.
No, it's communal resilience. It's shared.
That's another story from the Bullvine podcast. These are the people building the future of dairy. And today, I think we learned that building sometimes just means holding each other up when the legs get kicked out from under you.
That's it exactly. And remember this. The cameras left Lovington. The news cycle moved on to the next thing. But the neighbors didn't. They stayed. That's the part to remember.
The neighbors didn't leave.
You can find more stories that matter at www.thebullvine.com. Next time, we're talking to a producer who is flipping the script on genetics in a way you won't expect. He's turning data into dollars in a whole new way. Subscribe so you don't miss it.
See you then.
Take care.